Hi, welcome back to another podcast with Mr. Hagan. And on this Econ podcast, we're going to continue to talk about investing. As always, I want to highlight to listeners that this video is not designed to give investment advice. Its purpose is educational only. This video and other videos on this playlist are designed to teach about different theories of investing. If you want investment advice, please see a professional. Okay, so let's get to the educational part of this. And we talked about in some of the earlier videos the reason why you would want to own stocks. And the two main reasons is because you would want to share in their earnings, and those earnings could be paid out to you in the form of dividends, or increased earnings could lead to an increase in the share price, which would create capital gains, the increase in the share price for you, the shareholder. So really, it all comes down to earnings and dividends, or at least that's the idea of one of the four theories of the stock market. So let's back up and say that what we're going to start to do in this video is we're going to start to look at the four theories of the stock market. There are actually many more than four theories. I'm going to focus on four different possible theories for stock market investing. The first one that we're going to focus on is what is called the firm foundation theory. The firm foundation theory is probably the most popular theory amongst stock market traders or Wall Street traders. In fact, I would guess, and this is only a guess, it's an educated guess, that maybe as high as 90%, maybe as high as 90% of Wall Street traders are firm foundationalists. So let's look at what these firm foundationalists believe about markets. So first of all, what a firm foundationalist believes is this. They believe that all firms have some basic intrinsic value. I'm going to define that concept a little better here as we go. But they believe that all firms have some basic intrinsic value. Another word for intrinsic, another word that we might use for intrinsic, is they believe that they have some real value. They have some real value, and that with careful analysis, we can figure out what that real value of the company is. What are they really worth? We can figure that out. So all firms have some intrinsic value that can be determined by careful analysis. That can be determined by careful analysis. So let's take a look at what we would care about when we do our careful analysis. We would care about, if we're a firm foundationalist, we care about four things. We really care about two things. We believe that a firm's true value is determined by the dividends that they're able to pay and the earnings that they generate. That's what determines what a firm is worth. What are the dividends that they pay, and what are the earnings that they're able to generate? That determines the real or intrinsic value of a company. And of course, we also then care about trying to guess, educated guess, based on careful analysis. We care about or try to figure out what will be the future dividends that the company will be able to pay, and what are the future earnings that the company will be able to generate. Now, before we talk about how firm foundation works in the stock market, let's use the firm foundation model to think about this guy right here. So who is this guy? This guy, his name is Honus Wagner. His name is Honus Wagner. He was a shortstop, I believe, for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I think he played in the 1909 World Series, famously the Pirates against the Detroit Tigers. It was Honus Wagner against Ty Cobb, if I have my baseball history correct. And either way, Honus Wagner was opposed to tobacco. He was opposed to smoking. Now, at the time, baseball cards were distributed through tobacco products. And Honus Wagner said, "No, not mine. I'm not. I'm against tobacco. I do not want my cards to be distributed with tobacco products." But one of the tobacco companies apparently had already, or so the story goes, had already sent out some of their tobacco product with Honus Wagner cards contained in them. And Wagner said no, so the tobacco company had to recall all those tobacco products and destroy the Honus Wagner cards that were in those tobacco products. But apparently, as the story goes, some of the cards still leaked out to the public, And as a result of that, they are now very, very valuable today. They have a lot of value, a very high price in the market today. So let's think about this. Let's think about that Honus Wagner baseball card. So if we were firm foundationalists, we would try to figure out what is the intrinsic value of this Honus Wagner baseball card. That means what is its real value? What is it really worth? So what would we study to try to figure out what the card is really worth? And by the way, this would be true for any baseball card. What would we study about the baseball card to try to figure out its intrinsic value? Well, one thing that we might do is we might look at the condition of the card. What is the condition of the card? Is it in good condition? Are the corners frayed? Has it been, in a protective case? Things like that. So we look at the condition of the card. Number two, we might look at who is the player on the card. So the better the player, presumably the more valuable the card will be, the greater the real value of the card. We would look at the age of the card. How old is the card? If the card's really old, then it might be worth more than if it's, just some player from last year. And then finally, we might look at the scarcity of the card. How many of the cards are available? So if we look at the Honus Wagner card, we would say it's pretty old. It's pretty old. It's pretty scarce. Honus Wagner was a pretty good player. And then the last thing that would depend is you'd have to study the condition of the card. Either way, you put all these things together and you could figure out what you believe to be the intrinsic value of the Honus Wagner card. That means the real value. What do you believe it's really worth based on this information, based on this careful analysis that you've done? So let's say that we've done this careful analysis and we believe that the Honus Wagner's, that we believe the intrinsic value or the real value of the Honus Wagner card is $3 million. Let's say that's what we believe. We've done our analysis, and that's what we believe is the intrinsic value of the Honus Wagner card. Okay, well, if we believe that's true, then that's going to give us some basic trading rules. So, for example, here's my rules for trading. If the current market price, that's the price that it's currently selling for in the market, if that is lower than what I believe the intrinsic value to be, then that's going to be a buy signal. So for example, let's say that I find that the current market price of a Honus Wagner baseball card is that people are currently willing to sell it for $2 million. That's the current price. Well, I would want to then buy the Honus Wagner baseball card. Why? Because I believe, and this is fundamental to the idea of intrinsic value, I believe that in the long run, the market price will eventually return to the intrinsic value. That's what I believe. The market price will eventually return to the intrinsic value. So if I believe the card is worth $3 million and I can buy it for $2 million, then I want to buy it. That's a buy signal. Okay, sorry about that. It's a little hard to see. Then I want to buy it. That's a buy signal. I want to buy that card because I believe, right here it would be, I would buy the card because I believe it's going to return to its intrinsic value and I'll make money. When that price goes from $2 million to $3 million, I'll make money. Now, let's think about the other side of this. The other possibility, the other rule for trading would be if the current market price is higher than the intrinsic value. If the price is higher than what I think it's really worth, then that will be a sell signal for me. That will be a sell signal. So, for example, if the current market price of the Honus Wagner baseball card, if that current market price is $4 million and I own it, and the current market price is $4 million, and I believe that the card is really only worth $3 million, I believe that the market price is eventually going to come back down here to the intrinsic value, then that is a sell signal. I want to sell it right now when I can get $4 million before the intrinsic value goes back to $3 million. So let me say these rules again. If the current market price is lower than the intrinsic value, buy it. If the current market price is higher than the intrinsic value, sell it. That's what I believe about baseball cards. And that is also what we're going to believe if we are firm foundationalists. That is what we're going to believe about buying and selling stock. These will be the same rules for trading that we just used for a Honus Wagner baseball card. But we're going to have to do that on another video. I'm running out of time. This has been another video podcast with Mr. Hagan. Thanks for joining us, and I will see you on the next podcast.